how to restore your old content on an expired domain automatically with Automattic.ai. Well, that's what we're going to cover in this video. You've just bought an expired domain and you want to recover the old content in a way that gets your domain up and running again a bit faster. Well, in this video, we're going to show you the method that will allow you fairly quickly to recover the old URLs and then simply create a project on autopilot and in bulk to, well, restore your old URLs. The first thing we're going to do is recover the old URLs so that we can, of course, restore the old content or at least regenerate it. The first fairly simple step is to do a site search quite simply in Google to see in terms of indexing and by priority, of course, the old URLs that are potentially still indexed and could therefore bring you some traffic pretty quickly. So here, for example, we've done a site search, and as you can see, we have the entire list of the old URLs that are still indexed. So right there, we have the ability also by priority to go and recover what's still indexed, which I think is the most important thing. So quite simply here, we're going to recover either by scraping if you have a lot of them or manually each and every URL that we're then going to put into a Google Sheet. There you go. A second fairly simple method here, for example, with HaloScan, well, is to simply monitor it. Now, I've used HaloScan, but you have SEMrush and so on. Why not? So you simply enter your URL into the tool that lets you monitor it, and then you'll see based on the keywords what kind of content there was, especially on the top pages, for example, here, as you can see. So again, you see there are a few pages that are still in the monitoring tools. So again, it's worth going and recovering them, obviously. And also to add them to a Google Sheet. And then we'll sort through them, obviously, for any duplicates, obviously, afterwards, since there are obviously likely to be some. Same thing, I did it with SEO Observer. There are a few less in this case, but there you go. It was to show you at least two different tools that allow you to very quickly pull up the URLs that are potentially still good because they're either indexed or they're still being detected. So maybe, you know, in terms of priority, it's worth restoring them pretty quickly once you've bought your expired domain. The obvious method, GSC, of course. So here you restore your domain, you add it to Google Search Console, and after a few days in this case, there you go, you'll have the URLs that show up if you have any, of course. So here, well, it's even better because you have all the URLs by keyword. Here, you just need to click on Export. So there you simply export all the data into a Google Sheet, where you can add the site operator and of course clean all of this up. Here's the Google Sheet in question. So you've added your sites, results, and so on. Don't forget to remove duplicates, of course, that's important. So what's happening here? Well, quite simply, we end up with our list of URLs. So now what we're going to do is clean up this Google Sheet pretty quickly in order to retrieve the keywords that correspond. You see in the URLs here, for example, essential dog accessories and so on. So we'd like to keep, if possible, just essential dog accessories. So what we're going to do here is a find and replace like this in the edit menu. First, we're going to type in the root domain, so here akiot.org, and we're going to replace it with, well, here we'll just put a space, quite simply. And we're going to ask it to, well, simply replace all. There you go. So first, we're basically getting rid of the root domain. Here, what we're going to do is remove the hyphens. So same thing, I'll put a hyphen, here is space, and I'll do replace all. There, so now everything's broken up. And then I'll do the slash. Same thing, I'll put a space here and I'll do replace all. There, the first one didn't go through. Well, it's not a big deal. We'll do it manually. Since I had it selected, I think I messed something up. There we go. And so now, quite simply, you see we end up with a list that's already been cleaned up a bit. List dog breeds and so on and so forth. So potentially pages to redo. So here we have a hello world from WordPress. We'll get rid of that. We have a page 2. We'll get rid of that. One category. We'll get rid of that. Health category, training category, and so on. Tips, there you go. You do a little cleanup on that, okay? Here for the example, I'm going to grab these keywords. Next, you've added your domain directly to Automattic.ai. You have the link then in the description. You're going to create an autopilot campaign. So from here, from the plugin, here you'll go to autopilot. So directly from a keyword list, so from keywords, we'll click here. We'll take articles for this example. We'll do from a list of keywords here. And so what we're going to do here, well, quite simply is we're going to paste in here all the keywords that correspond to each page we've recovered. Regarding your WordPress site configuration, of course, you'll need to double check that you have the same permalinks. That is, in this case, as we saw on the Google Sheet, and as we can see here in the URLs, you see here, for example, we'll have pages, in this case, a parent page, so list dog breeds Griffon Fauve Britannia. So here we see parent pages, child pages, so you'll have to generate this in several batches to assign them to the parent pages. When you have articles, obviously, well, you need to manage the permalink properly so that you can match the same URL as much as possible. But you'll see we have a trick for that if it's not perfect, to be able to automatically 301 redirect each corresponding page with a 301 and do it all completely automatically. So here we have put, you see, the Israelite, etc. Here we will simply click on generate titles, and so here it will generate titles. So you can customize it. You have instructions, a title style, etc. Of course, you can customize it. Here we end up with titles that are a bit more correct this time compared to what we had before, since it was at the URL level, so we had a lot of keywords. Here, for once, we have pages that are a little more that are a little sexier, let's say. Once that's done, we'll go to configure content. So there, of course, you will configure your content in Autopilot, select your profile, select your text template, your options, etc. And then you'll plan your posts. So either you publish everything at once, of course, or you will make a publication on a specific date. Well, here we're on XP. These are URLs that were indexed, so I still advise you to put them all back, of course, so that she can leave directly. We will therefore end up with URLs which will either be identical for some, others not, of course, but which will generally be closer to what we had before. So since you're doing it in bulk and there are still a lot of pages to redirect, it's going to be a bit tedious to do them one by one, either in Htaccess or with a redirection plugin. So what I recommend is you have a plugin called 404 Auto Redirect or something similar. Basically, when someone clicks on an old URL, for example, one that was indexed, it will simply redirect them to similar content based on the title. So it will create a 301 redirect. Obviously, you can reproduce the URLs you had exactly, which is also very good. I still recommend doing this for your top pages. It's important. So maybe publish on Autopilot. Try to publish in batches and not necessarily send everything at once, so you can select the most important things. But in any case, for the rest, if you have really large indexes of 500,000 pages and you're dealing with that kind of volume, well, it does the trick. Of course, the URLs will change. It will index the old ones, but this will prevent you from having 404 errors. And if possible, that's what you need. It obviously works here. We made the point site, but if you have backlinks, of course, given that other sites point to a deep URL of the site, which talked about a theme, well, it will allow the user, if it is clicked, to find themselves on an identical page that talks about roughly the same thing. So it's a practical way like this to partially recover the old content, to come to an expired one, restore as much as possible, and avoid manually typing, obviously, the URLs one by one when there are many. When there are 10 or 15, it's fine, but when you go from 100 or 200, it starts to get complicated. We haven't talked about the Wayback Machine. Of course, it's something quite well known to go and see the site beforehand, but you surely did that when you bought your expired item, to see what was there before, to see if it was spammed or anything else, of course. So here too, you can retrieve the URLs. I didn't want to show it intentionally because the URLs are retrieved one by one, or else there are techniques for scraping Wayback Machine, which are a bit more complex than what I just showed you. Here's a little video with tips on how to retrieve old content from an expired account, from the Points website or other monitoring tools with automatic AI. Well, that's it for this short video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, thanks everyone. Ciao.